guys? Logan Battles here, and welcome to the Season 3 premiere of LBFT. I am so excited to be starting this episode with you guys. It's been since March of this year that LBFT Season 2 has ended, and ever since then I missed doing these episodes. It's been a lot of fun doing these episodes, and I want to go back to doing more of these. That's how excited I am about starting this third season. But now I'm back, ladies and gentlemen, as good as new, and excited as hell for starting season 3. Now, I've been thinking about how to start season 3 of LBFT off for months, until at one point when I revealed the plot description for season 3 and how it will be, how it will turn out to be in terms of which direction it's going plot wise, and then I decided that the first 2 episodes is going to be one about college football and the other being about the NFL. And for this third season premiere of LBFT, I decided to focus on 5 ways, my 5 ways, in making college football great again. That's what this episode is going to be about. It's going to be about me revealing 5 ways to bring college football back to what it should be, and back to when it was great, and how to make it great. Because let me say this to you. First of all, let me say this. I've been watching football since 2014. Ever since that BCS National Championship game between my Florida State Seminoles and the Auburn Tigers, I have instantly became a fan of football, not just college football. And then a year later or two, I extended my fandom for football by starting to watch the NFL. Ever since Jameis Winston was drafted number 1 overall to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I must say this. Over the past couple of years, college football has been dwindling. It has dwindled significantly, in my eyes at least. Let me tell you why. We all know how great Nick Saban and Alabama are. They are arguably the greatest dynasty in this entire decade of college football. There is no denying whatsoever. There's no denying whatsoever that they are. Over the past 10 years, they've won 5 national championships. 5 national championships in the last 10 years. That's unbelievable. I can't deny how great Nick Saban is as a coach, and how great of a team and a dynasty Alabama is. But let me say this. Despite the respect that I have for Nick Saban and Alabama, I hate Alabama. I hate them so much. So much so that they have sucked the competition out of college football for me. Now, one of the biggest things that you'll have to know about me is that I'm all about competition. I'm all about competition. You winning or losing against big-time teams, highly ranked, very incredibly competitive, incredibly absolutely tough to beat, and stuff like that. I'm a big competition type of guy, and over the last couple of years, college football has been anything but that. Has been anything but competitive. And that is due to Alabama's overwhelming dominance over the entire field of college football. You know, them dominating 95% of the weak teams that they go up against. Or I shouldn't say 95, I should say 90% of the teams. I'll say 90%. Because there were some teams Alabama went against that did give Alabama a run for their money. Not just Clemson, and we'll get into them later on, but over the past couple of years, Alabama has been sucking my interest in watching college football out of it. They have made me lost interest in watching college football by completely wiping everybody off the field. Almost everybody. And that's one of the reasons why I stopped watching college football after they beat Georgia in the 2018 National Championship. I stopped watching that because I was so sick and tired of seeing Alabama playing in consecutive national championships. I want to see everybody else besides Alabama competing for a national title. So those are just a few things that I want to preface. Those are just the comments that I want to preface to start off this episode. Now, let's get started. Let's get into my 5 ways of making college football great again, and why I personally think that will make college football great again if these 5 things happen. Let's get started with number 5 on the list. Remove meaningless bowl games. Let me say this to you guys. Unless your team is playing in the college football playoffs, I don't see any reason why you should be excited for your team to play in a bowl game that has no meaning to it whatsoever, that has no value to it whatsoever, regardless of which opponent your team goes up against. I mean, before we had the college football playoffs, we had the BCS contest, and I was actually glad that in 2014 we now have, or not now, but back in 2014 we had the college football playoffs, and I was glad that we got it because, you know, I honestly felt like, you know, looking back on it, basically, I'm glad that we got the college football playoffs go on instead of BCS, because having just 2 teams competed for a national championship didn't seem like much competition for me. Because, I'm going back to what I previously just said early in this episode. I'm a competition type of guy. I'm all about competition. And the BCS, to me, looking back on it, didn't do a good job of letting other teams besides the top 2 teams compete for a national championship. It didn't give enough contest for other teams besides the top 2 to. It didn't give a chance for the 3rd and 4th ranked teams to have a shot at a national title. And now that we have the college football playoffs, I'm somewhat happy because I feel like we need more than 4, but I'm okay with 4. It's better than 2, I'll give you that. Now, getting back to the bowl games, that meaningless bowl games that I just mentioned. If they're not, like I said, I know some fans for some teams that played in non-college football playoff bowl games would probably feel differently than I would. And that's fine. I understand why you would always be excited for your team to play a bowl game, even though it's not part of the college football playoff contention. I understand that. Well, I would understand that and support it. However, I don't support having bowl games that are not part of a contest for a national title game. I don't. I don't think they're needed. I don't think they have any value to them whatsoever. They don't hold much interest for any fan of college football or NFL, or in this case, college football, a fan who wants competition for a national championship. Unless you're that type of fan, you'll probably enjoy the postseason bowl games that are not part of the college football playoffs. But if you are a college football fan who wants competition, who wants who wants his or her team to compete for a national championship, who wants their team to be part of a contest for a national championship, then I wouldn't understand why you're excited for your team to be playing for a meaningless bowl games. Because the bowl games that are not part of the college football playoffs, to me, are meaningless. They're just meaningless to me. I don't think we need them. I honestly feel like that college football needs to follow what the NFL has done, and the NFL has done a fantastic job of having this playoff seeds or whatever it is, having, 12 teams? 6 in each conference competing for a Super Bowl. I feel like college football needs to do the same with, the college football playoffs having 4 teams and no other teams outside of the top 4 playing in a bowl game. I don't think bowl games that are non-college football playoffs should be played. But that's just me. That's just my own opinion. Now, let's move on to number 4 on the list. Cut the connections between the FBS and the FCS. I have been a strong, long-time, unapologetic advocate for football games, particularly in college football, that should not be played by 2 different subdivision teams. I have been 100% against FBS, FCS games being played. I have a few reasons as to why. I'll start off with one. I don't care about FCS or the teams that they have in it. I don't care whatsoever. The FBS is what matters, or the teams in there matters. They matter, honestly, the FBS is really what is one of the reasons why we watch college football. Because there's competition within it amongst the conferences, no matter what they are. SEC, Big 12, Big 10, or Pac-12, or even the ACC, which has not been looking good in the past recent years. But But again, that's a different subject for another day. Teams within those conferences and those conferences within that subdivision, the FBS, which I think stands for Football Bowl Subdivision. I think that's right. I think I got that right. But anyway, FBS is one of the things that makes us love college. Is one of the reasons why we watch and love watching college football, because they have competitive conferences and competitive teams and competitive games within them. FBS is like a giant. When you think of a giant, you think, regardless of what genre, of what category you're in, movies, sports, entertainment, even politics to some extent. When I think of movies, I think of Disney and how big of a company they are. In fact, it's monstrously big. Uh, I mean, it's just that huge. And when I think of what else? Sports? Let's just go with sports. When I think of the NBA, I think of the Golden State Warriors. When I think of the NFL, I think of the New England Patriots. And when I think of college football, I think of Alabama. That's just where I'm at with it. And some of those teams that I just mentioned, and some of those sports of football, basketball, baseball, those are the teams that got people excited to watching games like those, games that are in those sports, those type of sports. And the fact that we continuously have these games that are played between FBS teams and FCS teams, the fact that we have two teams from two different subdivisions playing each other in a football game, particularly in a FBS game, really aggravates me to no end. It bothers me because it's similar to what I said about number 5. It has no meaning, value, or interest whatsoever from a fan's point of view, especially mine. A football game between two teams from two different subdivisions mean nothing. Now, with football games being played by two teams from the same subdivision, the FBS specifically, that we can watch. Who would, unless you're a fan of any team in the FCS, who cares about watching FCS teams playing other FCS teams within the FCS? Who cares? Nobody outside of FCS fans. I don't care. We don't really watch FCS all that much, and we watch the FBS. And college football is great because of the FBS. And that's one of the reasons why I believe college football should remove any games being played by games from two different subdivisions, and just cut all connections and leave FBS teams playing other FBS teams, and leave FCS teams playing other FCS teams. That's my belief, and why I feel like that should be made a decision to be made. I just hope it happens sometime in the future, and I believe it will happen. Moving on to number 3, replace the old with the new. Some of you might not know what that means, so let me explain. We have few coaches in college football, as of right now, that are still coaching their teams for much longer than a decade. Almost longer than a decade. Actually longer than a decade. Let's just go with that. There are certain coaches that have been coaching certain teams for longer periods of time that I honestly feel like, even though they are some great coaches and I have some respect for them, and I'll name which that I like and respect, they still, I feel like some changes need to be made at those with these certain teams that I'm about to mention, as well as their coaches. Let me mention the names. Starting off with Nick Saban. Nick Saban has been the head coach for the Alabama Crimson Tide since 2007, I believe. Yeah, 2007. And I have two coaches from two on two different teams that have been coaching since 2005, and that's Kyle Whittingham for the Utah Utes and Mike Gundy with the Oklahoma State Cowboys, and I got Gary Patterson for the TCU Horned Frogs. He's been coaching them since the year 2000, and but he doesn't have the longest active coaching career at a football program. That honor goes to Kirk Ferentz. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce his last name. Forgive me if I butcher your name, sir, but he has the honor of having the longest active coaching career in college football as a head coach. He's been coaching the Iowa Hawkeyes since 1999. He's the only coach in college football history to still have an active career, college football coaching career, before the year 2000 started. He still is the one and only coach that is still active in coaching in college football before the year 2000. He's still coaching for Iowa since 1999. So that's, what is it, 20 years? I feel like it's 20 years, but I guess it is 20 years. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is, with those coaches that I mentioned, with the names of those coaches that I mentioned, that have longer periods of coaching in college football, with the exception of Nick Saban, because he hasn't been coaching in college football long enough, like Mike Gundy, like Gary Patterson, or Kyle Whittingham, or even Kirk Ferentz they have longer coaching careers at the teams that they coach for than Nick Saban has for Alabama. So, what I'm trying to say is, changes need to be made. I understand that Gary Patterson, Mike Gundy, and Kyle Whittingham have great careers as head football coaches in college football, but none of them what's the right thing to say? None of them have appeared in the college football playoffs or even been a part of the national championship picture. I feel like there's new flesh and blood that needs to be born at those programs, instead of keeping the old-fashioned and having having the same things over and over and over again, even though they have great successes, like I just mentioned. I feel like new head coaches need to be named for certain programs, football programs like Iowa, Oklahoma State, TCU, and programs like them. That's just where I'm at with it. I feel like the new needs to replace the old. We need new head coaches that can lead their teams that hadn't been much of being parts of the college football playoffs or national championship picture. And part of me wants to see new coaches that can do that, unlike the ones Gary Patterson, Mike Gundy, and the rest that I mentioned. And number 2 on the list, and this is my biggest, well, not my biggest, but one of my biggest ways to make college football great again. One of the things that college football needs to improve, or needs to get better at in the future. Improve non-conference schedules. I can't tell you how many team schedules I have seen for the past few years that have non-conference from teams that have non-conference games on their schedule, and is like, I mean, that's just a cakewalk. Like, are you serious? Come on, those non-conference games don't sound really impressive. They don't sound exciting a lot. They don't sound really interesting to me. They don't sound like the types of non-conference games that you would watch, regardless if you're a fan of a certain team or not. And let me give you an example. I want to look at Alabama's 2019 schedule. I want to look at its schedule real quick. They got Duke. They faced Duke in their season opening game in Atlanta, Georgia. They face New Mexico State. They face Southern Miss, and they face Western Carolina. The reason why I bring up those games, why I'm bringing those games up, is because each of them are non-conference games that Alabama is playing. I mean, you want to talk about a Duke Blue Devils football team without Daniel Jones? You want to talk about that? Really? Come on. Stop it. New Mexico State? Seriously? Southern Miss? Seriously? Western Carolina? Are you freaking kidding me? Come on. There is not an impressive non-conference team that Alabama is facing this year. Don't tell me that Duke, without Daniel Jones, is the best non-conference team that Alabama's going up against this season, because they're not. They're not even impressive with Daniel Jones quarterbacking his team last season and the season before. Don't tell me Duke is an interesting matchup, because it's not. It's not. What I'm saying is, the non-conference schedule that Alabama is having this season is terrible. It's terrible. I mean, Nick Saban would probably be the first to tell you that he thinks it's stupid that they have teams like those teams that I just mentioned on their non-conference schedules. You know, over the last few years, we've been having teams like Alabama having non-conference schedules that do not look good at all. In fact, they look like the opposite of good. The one non-conference matchup that I will give Alabama, the last really interesting and intriguing and fascinating and exciting non-conference matchup that Alabama has had was against Florida State. That was the last time we have ever seen Alabama playing an interesting and exciting non-conference matchup. Since then, Alabama doesn't have a really good non-conference schedule. Schedules. It's just not that impressive. So that is just that's just one of the many examples to show you how college football needs to get better at. Improve non-conference schedules. Why not have Alabama facing Oregon instead of Auburn facing Oregon? Although it will be an interesting matchup, no doubt. But I'm just saying, like, come on, give Alabama better non-conference matchups, as well as other teams like Alabama. Well, unlike Alabama, but close to Alabama, having better non-conference matchups. Instead of giving it to New Mexico State, Southern Miss, Western Carolina. Come on. And this goes back to, what was it? Number 4? Yeah, number 4. Where I talked about cutting the connections between, FBS teams and FCS teams playing each other in football games. This is a similar way to make college football great again. Improve the schedules. Have better teams, non-conference teams, go up against Alabama on this schedule instead of having Western Carolina, Southern Miss, New Mexico State, freaking Duke. I mean, there's not a single grade non-conference team that Alabama's having to face this season. There's none. I'm not seeing it. So, I mean, yeah, just get better teams facing against Alabama. That's all I'm saying. I want to see Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, Oklahoma, Ohio State, and any other teams in their conference to have better non-conference schedules. Why not Ohio State facing Oklahoma again? That would be a great matchup. Why not have LSU? Well, actually, no. Well, actually, yeah. I'm sorry. Why not have LSU facing Clemson? Why not have Texas go up against Florida? That would be an interesting matchup. I will tell you that. Why not have Stanford against Syracuse? Yeah, I know Syracuse is not great at all, but still, Syracuse is a much better team than people giving them credit for. They are an underrated team as far as I'm concerned. They are not getting the credit that they deserve as far as I'm concerned. I don't care what anybody says. So, I mean, this is what I'm saying about how to improve non-conference schedules for any team like Alabama, like Clemson, like Ohio State, or Oklahoma, or any other teams like them. That's all I'm saying. And number one on the list is defeat Alabama and Clemson. That is the number one thing to make college football great again, as far as I'm concerned. The only, the biggest way to make college football great again. Probably just as great to watch as the NFL, if not better. I want to see certain teams that are not Clemson and that are not Alabama challenge those two teams. I want to see challengers against Alabama and Clemson. I want to see Ohio State go up against Clemson and Alabama. I want to see Oklahoma go up against Alabama and Clemson. I want to see a Texas going up against Clemson and Alabama. I even want to see Oregon with this dude, Justin Herbert, who's got a lot of promise. We will have to wait and see his season opening game against Auburn. But I probably would want to see Oregon go up against Clemson and Alabama, and not only that, challenge them, and not only challenge them, defeat them, beat them, and become national champions. That's how I look. That to me will make college football great again. It's seeing other teams having the opportunity to have to challenge and beat the top teams in the country, Clemson and Alabama. I want to see that happen. Because if we continue to have to see Clemson and or Alabama winning national championships and no other teams have been able to dethrone Clemson and Alabama, then college football will continue to get boring and keeps continuing to dwindle, like it has for the past couple of years. Even though I do love the Clemson and Alabama matchup, I'm getting to a point where I just see too much of this rivalry. I want to see other teams challenge and defeat those two teams. I want to see that. That will make college football great again. I guarantee you. I guarantee you that will get a lot of people watching college football. A lot of people. It has to happen, or else we will continue this recent journey of college football not being worthy, not being too competitive to watch, not being competitive enough and exciting enough to watch, with Clemson and Alabama running the entire field under their feet. That's just how I look at it. And those, ladies and gentlemen, are my 5 ways to make college football great again. Those are just my ways. I hope you guys enjoyed this season 3 premiere episode of, or just premiere, not premiere episode, premiere of LBFT. I hope you guys have a great day. And I will see you guys in the next episode of LBFT Season 3. The second episode will be coming up in a few days, so stay tuned. So, have a great week, Battle Squad, and football fans, if y'all are watching. And as always, fight the good fight.